Most riders think motorcycle damage comes from bad parts, bad luck, or a bike that was built wrong. But a lot of expensive repairs start with tiny habits the rider repeats every day. A cold throttle blip, a lazy downshift, a foot resting on the brake, a chain noise you swear disappeared. None of these feels expensive while you were doing it, but over months and years, they quietly wear out engines, drivetrains, brakes, bearings, batteries, and tires. So today we are going through 15 riding habits that quietly wreck your motorcycle and drain your wallet. And number one starts before the bike even leaves the driveway. Number one, revving the engine cold. $300 in rod bearing shells. That is the minimum entry price once the crank journals start showing wear from oil starvation. And the majority of that damage does not come from an accident or a defective part. It happens in the first 90 seconds every single morning. When an engine has been sitting overnight, the oil has drained off many of the surfaces it was protecting. The oil pump does not build pressure until the engine is already spinning. That window between ignition and full oil pressure reaching every surface can be several seconds, depending on temperature, oil viscosity, and engine design. The rider who blips the throttle the moment it fires is not warming the bike up faster. He is spinning those dry surfaces harder before oil arrives. Modern fuel-injected engines are not carbureted bikes from 1987. 10 minutes of idle is not productive warming. At idle, combustion pressure is low, so the rings are not being pushed into the cylinder wall as hard as they are under gentle load. Let it sit there too long, especially cold, and you are giving moisture and unburned fuel more time to dilute the oil instead of getting the engine up to temperature. 20 to 30 seconds at idle. Then ride easy for the first mile. Oil warms faster under gentle load than sitting still. Number two, lugging the engine in a tall gear. Every engine has a happy range. Below that range, in a gear too tall for the speed, the engine may feel smooth, but it is working harder than it should. What is actually happening is simple. Cylinder pressure is high, crank speed is low, and the bearings are being asked to carry load without the oil film speed they would have at a healthier RPM. That is why lugging is not the same as being gentle. A rider thinks he is saving the engine because the revs are low, but the engine is not asking for low revs. It is asking for the right gear. Rod bearing damage from lugging does not announce itself right away. It accumulates quietly because the rider thinks smooth equals safe. If the engine feels like it is chugging, shuddering, or taking throttle lazily, downshift. Smooth does not always mean happy. Number three, ignoring the chain slap. A neglected chain makes a low metallic slap at low speed that disappears above 50 miles per hour and fools the rider into thinking he imagined it. He did not imagine it. It is inaudible at speed because the chain is moving too fast for the slap to separate from road noise. The wear is still happening. A chain stretched past spec no longer contacts the sprocket teeth at the designed load point. Instead of loading the full tooth flank, it starts loading near the tip. That accelerates wear on both parts at the same time. When the teeth develop enough hook to catch the chain rollers on release, the chain can skip under hard acceleration. In the worst case, a failed chain can whip, jam, crack cases, or lock the rear wheel. Many street bikes land somewhere around an inch of movement at the lower run, but the number that matters is the one in your manual. Chain slack is not a universal spec. Lube every 500 miles or after rain. Clean it before you lube it. Number four, dumping the clutch on downshifts. A chain and sprocket set on a Ninja 400 runs about $180 to $220 in parts. Under normal use, many riders see around 20,000 miles from a set. The rider who dumps the clutch on downshifts and uses engine braking as his main speed scrub can cut that life way down. A dumped downshift sends a shock load through the entire drivetrain at once. The chain jerks tight, the cush drive rubbers absorb some of it, the countershaft bearing absorbs some of it, and the transmission dogs take the rest. Once, it is nothing. 10,000 times over 2 seasons, it becomes wear you created yourself. The fix is not complicated. Blip the throttle on the downshift. Match engine speed to road speed before releasing the clutch. The chain stays loaded evenly, the rear tire stays calmer, and the drivetrain stops taking a hammer blow every time you slow down. Number five, believing the wrong fuel myth. Two fuel ideas get mixed together constantly. One is mostly a harmless myth, the other is a real fuel system problem. The myth is premium fuel. Higher octane does not make more power by itself. Octane is resistance to auto ignition under compression. If the engine and ECU are not designed to take advantage of higher octane, 93 does not magically create more horsepower. Octane is knock resistance, not power in a bottle. The real problem is ethanol and storage. E10 is standard pump fuel in many places, and most modern motorcycles tolerate it fine. E15 is different, and the pump label specifically warns against using it in motorcycles. When fuel sits, ethanol can pull in moisture. If enough water accumulates, phase separation can happen, and the water-heavy alcohol layer is exactly what you do not want entering carb passages or injectors first. Number 6, skipping valve clearance checks. Valve clearance is the maintenance item riders skip because it is invisible. The bike starts, the bike runs, so the rider assumes everything is fine. Many modern multi-valve motorcycle engines have specified clearances between the valve stem and the cam follower, shim bucket, rocker, or adjuster. The spec exists because metal expands when the engine reaches operating temperature. The part riders forget is that clearances often tighten over time, especially as valve seats wear. When a clearance gets tight enough that the valve cannot fully close at temperature, compression leaks past it on every stroke. Heat builds at the valve because it is not seating properly and transferring heat into the head. Burnt valves are not dramatic at first. They are a slow thermal death that begins when the clearance goes out of spec and nobody checks. Number 7, guessing the oil level. Most riders check the oil window or dipstick occasionally, top it off when it looks low, and call it done. The problem is that too little and too much are both engine problems. Too little oil means the pump is drawing from a shallow supply. Under acceleration, braking, or cornering, depending on engine and sump design, a low oil level can let the pickup uncover for a moment. The cam, the main bearings, and the top end are the first to notice. The rider usually is not. Too much oil creates a different problem. The crankshaft can whip excess oil into foam. Foamed oil does not lubricate the same way liquid oil does. Crankcase pressure can rise. On some bikes, overfill pushes oil into the airbox through the breather, then into the intake. The fix takes 2 minutes. Check the level exactly as the manual specifies, on level ground, at the temperature the manual calls for. Do not guess from memory. Do not top off by feel. Number 8, blasting bearings with a pressure washer. There is a specific way to destroy wheel bearings without realizing it, and the tool that does it costs about $20 at a hardware store. Wheel bearing seals are designed to keep grease in and road splash out. They are not designed to resist 2,000 pounds per square inch of direct water pressure aimed straight at the seal face. That pressure can overwhelm the lip and drive water past the seal into the bearing race. The bearing does not fail immediately. It keeps rolling. But now it is rolling with water mixed into the grease, and that destroys the protective film between the rolling elements. Fretting corrosion starts. Micro-pitting develops in the race. A few thousand miles later, you hear a faint rumble at highway speed and think it is pavement texture. Garden hose on the chassis, pressure washer on pipes, frame rails, and bodywork. Keep the jet away from hubs, pivots, seals, and anything that was designed to keep grease inside. Number 9, overloading the charging system. Many motorcycle charging systems produce somewhere in the 200 to 500 watt range, but touring bikes and large modern machines can be higher. That output is the entire electrical budget of the bike. A heated vest can draw 45 to 75 watts. Heated grips can draw 25 to 50. Auxiliary lights can pull 80. GPS and a phone charger might add another 20. Suddenly, you have added 170 to 225 watts on top of what the motorcycle already needed. On a smaller bike with a 200 watt charging system, that math does not work. The bike still needs power for ignition, fuel pump, lights, ECU, and charging the battery. If the accessories demand more than the system can supply, the battery starts covering the difference. After that, the weak points become connector plugs, regulator rectifier, wiring, and eventually stator windings if heat and load stay high long enough. Know your charging output before wiring accessories. The spec is in the service manual. Number 10, holding the clutch at every red light. This one costs money slowly, invisibly, and for no reason. The clutch release mechanism is designed to handle intermittent loads, pulling the lever at a stop sign, releasing it when you go. What it is not designed for is constant pressure for the full duration of every long red light, every slow traffic stretch, and every parking lot crawl. A release bearing under constant load is working against the pressure plate fingers the entire time. Over time, that wear can show up as lever drag, noise, or a clutch that stops feeling clean. This does not mean you should ignore traffic behind you. Staying in gear for an escape route can make sense when cars are still coming up behind you. But when you are stopped long enough and the situation behind you is settled, give the clutch a rest. Sitting in gear for every long red light, every day, is not free. Number 11, resting your foot on the rear brake. You have probably done this without thinking about it. Sitting at a red light, left foot down, right foot resting on the rear brake pedal. It does not take much pressure. Just enough pedal weight to keep the pad touching the rotor is enough to create heat you never smell and wear you never notice. Over enough city riding, that light contact can glaze the pad surface. Glazed pads have reduced friction. When you actually need the rear brake, it grabs less than it should. And beyond the pad, localized heat at a dragging caliper does no favors for brake fluid. Brake fluid absorbs moisture over time, and moisture lowers the boiling point. Move the right foot off the pedal when you are not braking. It costs nothing. It costs everything the one time it matters. Number 12, ignoring old brake fluid. 2-year brake fluid replacement is written into many motorcycle service schedules, and almost nobody does it until the lever gets spongy. Brake fluid absorbs moisture through the reservoir cap, through hose material, and through aged seals. Fresh DOT4 brake fluid has a dry boiling point of 446 degrees Fahrenheit. Once brake fluid is moisture contaminated, the wet boiling point can fall dramatically. For DOT4, the minimum wet boiling standard is 311 degrees Fahrenheit. In city riding, you may never notice. But under hard braking on a mountain descent or trailing the brake through switchbacks, fluid temperature climbs. Fresh fluid handles that margin. Old fluid may not. When brake fluid vaporizes, the lever goes soft because gas compresses. Liquid brake fluid does not. A brake fluid flush is cheap maintenance. Losing lever pressure when you need it is not. Number 14, forgetting the air filter. Airbox maintenance has an image problem. It is not exciting. Nobody brags about a clean air filter, so riders ignore it until the bike feels different in a way they cannot name. The air filter is the only thing standing between road dust and your cylinder walls. A clogged filter restricts the air volume entering the engine. On a carbureted bike, restriction often pushes the mixture rich. On a fuel-injected bike, the ECU can correct some of it, but it cannot make a dirty filter flow like a clean one. Either way, combustion efficiency drops, fuel economy falls, throttle response softens, carbon builds where it should not. That is not even the expensive part. The expensive part is a filter so deteriorated, damaged, or badly seated that fine grit gets through. Cylinder wall scoring from contaminated intake air is not a quick tune-up. It can become a top-end repair. Number 15, trusting a tire just because it still has tread. Wear indicators keep a tire street legal. They are not a full replacement schedule. UV exposure, heat cycles, storage conditions, and age all change rubber. A tire that has sat outside for years can still have tread and still not grip like it should. The DOT code on the sidewall has a 4-digit number at the end. The first 2 digits are the week of manufacture, and the last 2 are the year. 3220 means week 32 of 2020. If that tire is on the bike today, it is already years old. After 5 years, age becomes part of the inspection, not just tread depth. Some tires still pass, some do not. But once a motorcycle tire has hardened, cracked, or been heat cycled for years, tread depth stops telling the full story. Old tires look completely fine. They hold air, they roll straight, they corner without drama until the one corner where they do not. None of these mistakes feels expensive while you are doing it. That is why they work. The damage does not announce itself until the bill shows up. Be honest in the comments. Which one have you been doing without thinking?